Herschel Damn Walker compares himself to horse manure. Here it is.
And he put us here for a reason, and we're here to win this election, are we not? Hey, so I'm gonna tell you this little story. I've been talking about these two little boys, and one little boy is always positive in life. No matter whatever happened to that kid, he was positive about it. But this other little kid was always negative. No matter whatever's going on in his kid's life, he was negative about everything. And the father don't know what's going on with these kids because they're twins, but they're so opposite. So around Christmas time, he tried a little experiment. He put this negative little kid in his room, nothing but brand new toys. But he put this positive little kid in his room, nothing but horse manure. And after an hour or so, he looked down on this negative little kid and he was complaining, I don't want this, I want that. I don't want this, I want this. And the father knew that this kid is never gonna amount to anything because nothing ever makes him happy. But he looks in on the kid that's in the room with the horseman. He got a shovel. He's shoving his horseman over his shoulder. He's laughing and singing and having a good time. First thing the father thinks, this kid's got to be crazy. But he said, son, what's going on? What's going on, little boy? You know, Dad, as much horseman there is in this room, there must be a pony at the bottom of it.
What? Okay. Herschel Walker was comparing himself to either A, horse dung, or B, the pony, which was full of horse dung. All right. That was his speech. The man has not won a damn thing, and he's already talking like this. Here's how Warnock sounded, Senator Warnock addressing people after the election.
This race is about competence and it's about character. And when it comes to that, the choice could not be more clear between me and Herschel Walker. We've seen that Herschel Walker has a disturbing history, a pattern of violence against women, against his own family, and he refuses to take responsibility for that, and he refuses to even answer questions. And so the question right now is this: is that who we want? No! Representing Georgia.
As you should be well aware, they're in the runoff. All right, state of Georgia. Let's get to it. Republican Senate candidate Herschel Walker addressed supporters ahead of election results and shared a story about a boy who gets horse manure for Christmas. Which, by the way, if you stick a child in a room like that, that is child abuse, Herschel. While his twin brother gets new toys, according to Walker, and then complains. Walker likens himself to the child who received the manure, because there must be a pony at the end of the tight Senate race. Neither Senator Raphael Warnock, the Democrat, nor Republican Herschel Walker cleared 50% during Tuesday's election, forcing a sprint to a head-to-head matchup on December 6th between the two candidates. On Wednesday, Warnock led Walker by just over 35,000 votes. But Georgia law requires a runoff if no candidate clears 50%. So let me give you the precise language of the Georgia statute. Your mandate to govern in a statewide contest can only be accomplished when you receive 50% plus one additional vote. Many publications will say 51%. That is untrue. You can get less than 51% and still have a constitutional mandate to govern. Brian Kemp, the current governor who recently defeated Stacey Abrams, did not get 51% of the vote. It was below that, but he was over 50% plus one. Now let me go back to a strategy dynamic. About 3 months ago, we were able to uncover that the third party libertarian candidate, Chase Oliver, in that Senate race was actually being utilized in order to bring votes down for Warnock. Now, typically, the libertarian candidate will take conservative votes away from the Republican nominee. Well, that depends on messaging. There was messaging coming from the libertarian side, maybe not paid for by the Libertarian Party, but it definitely wanted to strike connection between libertarians and blacks. Well, now you're in a runoff. I think they wanted a runoff from the beginning. I think they believe that Herschel Walker would do much better in a runoff than in a general election. So they put some money behind the Libertarian candidate. Look at the disclosure if you don't believe me. Now, what does that mean strategically? Remember, they already had this plan well before this election. 2 years ago, the state of Georgia passed restrictions on voting. We called it the voter restriction bill. They called it freedom to vote, voter protection, fairness in election. They branded it contrary to what it was. But there's a minor detail, actually two minor details in the bill that created the dynamic you're about to see in a few weeks in Georgia. One is the fact they decided to shorten the amount of time between a general election and the runoff, because research shows it typically takes Democrats more messaging dynamics and more time during the holiday season to come back out and vote. Republicans have not seen that kind of statistical dynamic in Georgia, so they shorten it to advantage the Republicans. Number two, if you live in the state of Georgia and you happen to be overseas or just out of the state serving your country in the United States military, that same voter restriction law eliminates a person's ability to vote in the runoff election. Hear me. It stops their ability. They cannot technically vote in the election. The state of Georgia, when Republicans passed the law, they did not consider the US military. When they shortened the time between the general and the runoff, they did not consider turnaround time for those serving the country. So what did they do? They created a ballot that makes you pick more than one candidate in case of a runoff. That's how they participate. That is completely contrary to the rules of engagement as it relates to voting. But that's exactly what they've decided to do. Disenfranchising military voters. How? Because they are actually voting on an election at the time that does not exist. Or what if they changed their mind? What if they wanted to vote for Walker the first time, but during the new campaign in the runoff, they've decided to vote for Warnock? Those in the military serving outside of the state of Georgia will not have that opportunity. All right, my dear brother, what are your thoughts here?
I think it's a very important thing to emphasize why all politics is local, because those are insights and bits of information that are very hard to find in other places. So it's important that you're on the ground there and really paying attention to it. Because I myself was wondering why the previous runoff wasn't on right before January 6th, like January 5th, and this one's now in December. It's a really important insight that, of course, Republicans, especially in Georgia, are realizing that this can give them an advantage. I say especially in Georgia because Brian Kemp, when he was Secretary of State, I believe, also had a history of finding ways to make it so Republicans had an advantage at the ballot box. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Doctor, he was behind a lot of the poll site closures in the state of Georgia, making it harder for people to access the vote. So it doesn't really surprise me this is happening. I hope that that Warnock's able to excite some energy here, that the idea of the Senate looking more blue than possible and the red wave looking like more of a red trickle, as John Iadarola puts it, I think hopefully that can push Democrats over the edge with Warnock. But again, the tables are stacked once again for Walker. We need to take this very seriously.